Humm, baby.
Enjoy this great game.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Humm Baby Baseball channel. And today we're going to continue a Hall of Fame discussion that's going on right now on all three of our channels. So after you check out this video, make sure to go to Jim's channel at BALLCAP Sports, WARDY'S channel, WARDYNYM, for a continuing discussion on the Hall of Fame. We're going over lots of candidates who we think should get in, and including some wild cards who haven't gotten in yet, who need to get in our opinion. So make sure you check out these videos. And today, going to be discussing a couple of guys I think that should be in, and including a wild card. So we're going to start with a guy named Andruw Jones, former Atlanta Brave. And Andruw Jones is a case that one of the most baffling cases, how he doesn't get a little more Hall of Fame support, because, and we're going to jump around here and talk about this, and I can't wait to get y'all thoughts. But Andruw Jones, this is a dude who was not only probably the premier defensive outfielder in the game for a long period of time, Gold Glove after Gold Glove after Gold Glove after Gold Glove, 10-time Gold Glover, matter of fact. So right there you have an outfielder who's like an Ozzie Smith type, even though he's in the outfield. But, just on his defense alone, he could get in. Oh, but the guy only crushes, 30 to 50 home runs, almost every year for a long period of time. He ends up with 434 home runs. And I think if he would have just retired, he gets in. But just because he had a little decline there his last 4 or 5 years, apparently, I guess that's what's keeping him out. Because other than that, I have no idea. The guy's, like I said, 10-time Gold Glover, 5-time All-Star. So to me, this is a no-brainer. Andruw Jones should be in. Can't wait to get your thoughts. So we'll start with Jim from BALLCAP Sports. What do you think of Andruw Jones? Am I off on that? What do you think?
I like Andruw Jones. And the argument against him has really just been that half of his career, he was great. And then the other half of his career, he wasn't great. But he couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't stay on the field. I don't want to hold that against him, because when he was healthy, he was incredible. From 90, he came up in 96, but he really took off in that 97, 98 period. And then he was great for almost 10 seasons, 5-time All-Star. And again, that argument is, well, he couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't stay out there. He didn't get to 2,000 hits. But again, that period from, we'll call it 98 to 06 was just an incredible run. And you can't keep Andruw Jones out because he didn't put the full body of work in, but say, oh, it's okay to have Sandy Koufax in. All right. I know Sandy Koufax is considered one of the best pitchers of all time, but Sandy Koufax was trash from 1955 to 1960. He had an ERA over 4 for that period. He had a losing record. And then in 1961, he figured it out. And then from 61 to 66, that's it. From age 25 to age 30, and then he walked away. He was incredible. So if we say Sandy Koufax can get in on half a body of work, but Andruw Jones can't, I think we're being hypocritical. I am with you that I think Andruw Jones did enough during that period that he should be in.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Yeah, Sandy Koufax. Nobody, he's the first ballot, no-brainer, absolute legend. Like even casual fans know Sandy Koufax, best pitcher of all time, one of the best. So great comparison. And he was only great for 5 years. And I think, Andruw Jones over a period of time, like I said, he was absolutely one of the best in the games, defensively and offensively. But let's see, what do you think, Wardy? Are you with us, or what do you think?
It's funny because as a Mets fan, I'm obviously not the biggest lover of Andruw Jones, being the longtime Brave, but he's literally like one of the biggest names. When you think of the Braves, you think of Andruw Jones amongst some others that we know, Chipper and Hank Aaron, all these guys, right? But when it comes to Jones in particular, this guy he wasn't like just a one-time Gold Glover. He wasn't a 5-time. He was a 10-time for a decade straight. He did not go 1 year from that span in 98 to 2007 where he wasn't a Gold Glover. And then the injuries started to kick in. His final Gold Glove was a 2007 season. And then for the next couple years leading up to his retirement, he never played a full season again. I'm really not surprised that a guy that was one of the best outfielders in the game finally had injuries catch up to him after being a decade's worth of Gold Glovers. It's common sense. Andruw Jones is lock him in. He's definitely worthy of being in the Hall of Fame. It's kind of baffling, if you ask me, that he isn't at this point. Seriously, his numbers speak for himself. It's not even like that he was a terrible hitter. He was an unbelievably strong hitter as well, as we know. But being that great of a defender for a decade straight, and not letting injuries catch up to you for that entire decade until after the fact is beyond me. Like, if he retired in 2007, lock him in. It isn't even a discussion still. So you can't turn on the guy that after a decade's worth of that hard work in that outfield every single day, that now things started to catch up on him, knowing that if he retired in 2007, it would probably not even be much of an argument.
That's just a sad thing, but we'll see. But the other guy we got to get to as a Giants fan, obviously we're talking Hall of Fame. Well, at some point we got to talk about the man, Barry Bonds. But, I don't even have to make a case to tell you the truth, because everybody, if you're not voting for Bonds, it's one reason and one reason only, and that's the steroid thing. I mean, there's no other reason you wouldn't vote for Barry Bonds, because obviously the dude has absolute best hitter in the history of the game if you just went by stats alone. But the case you can make, the case a lot of people do make, is that Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he started using steroids around 2000. If you take his stats before that, 3-time All-Star, 290 average, 400 plus home runs, 400 plus steals. And so even before that, he's got what it takes to get in. I think he would have absolutely been in if he would have just retired. And if he never did steroids, he would have absolutely been an easy lock for the Hall of Fame. So I don't see any other reason not to vote for him besides that, just how you feel on that. But, the conditions to get in, what Hall of Fame gives voters doesn't say, if you did steroids, you're out. It doesn't say that. So they have to make that decision. I think that Barry Bonds is one of the greatest in the game, with or without it, for a long period of time. Absolute legend. And I think that he should be in the Hall of Fame so that generations going forward, he should have a plaque, because this is Barry freaking Bonds. But, I'm a Giants fan, so I'm biased. So we have to go check out what the non-Giants fans have to say about it. So we'll go to Wardy first this time. Because I have no idea what y'all are going to say. What do you think of Barry Bonds?
I have been on the Barry Bonds support train since since I got into baseball and all this controversy I found out regarding the steroid era, everything there is to know. His accolades before the steroid era kicked in speak for themselves. That in itself is just like the Andruw Jones situation. If he retired then, he is definitely still worthy at that point, in my opinion, or at least close to, of being a consideration for being a Hall of Famer. And when you look at yes, I know you can say he was still in the prime of his career as this era was happening, but a lot of it too has to do with his recovery. Like, as a Mets fan, I can tell you personally, when I look at Robinson Cano getting caught with steroids now for the second time, right? Yes, it is helping his production, but two, it's also helping his recovery. Especially when you get into your mid to late 30s, these guys are doing it so that way they can still play every day. There's more to just the hitting aspect. Doesn't matter how much roids you do, you still need to be an excellent player and know how to hit the ball. Yes, it might help you a little bit with your growth and your development as your body heals, but outside of that, I think it's a complete joke that Barry Bonds is not a Hall of Famer. I think the more they drag it out, the more it's only going to look ugly. Because, look, if we take away all the players that have really been a part of that steroid era, what do we have? It's like as if we just decided not to watch baseball for around a decade. Like, regardless of how we feel about it, as terrible as it was, it's not like this was just a couple guys. This was the entire league. Yeah. And I think it's pretty outrageous, honestly. And I know that there are a lot of people that are going to disagree with me, and a lot of people that lived through it, especially people that say weren't Giants fans that had to deal with Bonds every couple days. But still, from my personal opinion, Barry Bonds, lock him in. Arguably, if not the best hitter of all time. It doesn't get much better than him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, we could try to pretend that that never happened, but yeah, like you said, a whole bunch of players were doing it, pitchers were doing it, messed up, but they get a chance to get an edge. They're going to get an edge. That's just the way that is. So I love your take there. But let's see what Jim, because BALLCAP Sports pretty much is the final word on this. What do you think?
So it's interesting because the reason he's out is because of the steroid use. But we know that there are some guys in the Hall of Fame that have the clouds over them as well. Pudge Rodriguez, even though he has denied it, never showed up on the Mitchell Report or anything like that. Canseco's book, which has kind of turned into the holy grail of how this whole thing started, implicated him. And he hasn't, I mean, everybody else that was in that book, it was proven that they took something. Pudge Rodriguez is the only guy that didn't, but Canseco still has Pudge, and Pudge is a Hall of Famer. Mike Piazza. Mike Piazza admitted to using Androstenedione Dione, and that's what McGwire was using. And we've crucified Mark McGwire for that. Piazza has said he briefly used it early in his career and stopped when, of course, he says he didn't see a drastic change in muscle mass and that he hit the ball as far in high school as he did then. Of course, that's what he's going to say. He's going to cover his behind. And Piazza's in the Hall of Fame. We also know from watching the baseball Ken Burns series that Tom Boswell back in the 90s was talking with a Hall of Famer that was using the Jose Canseco milkshake, had hit the most home runs of his career that year, and is in the Hall of Fame. He would not give that name out. So we've got at least 3 people who have the clouds, right? But we're keeping Barry Bonds out. Why? Because he used it longer. I think we're mad that he broke the home run records. I think we're mad that he broke the single season record and it's untouchable. I think we're mad that he passed the immortal Babe Ruth and the immortal Hank Aaron. That's what I think we're mad at. And this is like the penalty to keep him out. So that's hard. I don't like my records being broken by steroid users. I don't like that, right? I'm still kind of mad about that. But I'm coming around is what I'm saying. It's been a while now. I don't think he gets voted in. I think he ends up getting in from a committee that will vote him in, that will look past it, because the writers are not going to get him in. The writers are going to keep him out. But I think a committee gets him in one day. He belongs in the Hall of Fame ultimately. I don't think it's this year. I don't think it's by the writers voting. So, but I do think he will be in there because of the 400 homers and the 400 steals before the steroid use even started. Nobody had ever done that. So I think that he's there. Again, we're just mad at him because he broke the home run records. Two numbers that we held sacred now have that tarnish on it.
Yeah, mad at him because he was the best player. He was the best guy using steroids. But
yeah.
I understand that. But yeah, it's just absolutely insane. There's so many guys that were doing it at that time, and it was just part of the game. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying reward them. I think it should be a knock on them, just like any other knock on them. But ultimately, if how good they were overtakes that, I think they should get in. So
put it on the plaque. Put it on the plaque that the player had, was an alleged steroid user. Yeah.
Warning,
Put it
this player used steroids for this decade of time. Just know that he's still here, but there is that asterisk, right?
Yeah, they can put it on the plaque that he took, that he was in the steroid use family, but his numbers warranted election or something like that.
Yeah, I guess whatever it takes that they need to be in, they need to get a plaque in the Hall of Fame because they were some of the best in the game, not just Barry Bonds, but several others. And there's some that you might say, oh, the only reason they were as good as they were is because of steroids. Sammy Sosa could be an example, but Barry Bonds, it's not the case. Barry Bonds was the best before he touched steroids. So it's as a Giants fan, it was never we never thought this day that we'd ever have to even discuss Barry Bonds being in the Hall of Fame. It was a no-brainer forever. But here we are. I do want to get to one other guy, and it's going to be my wild card. I might go crazy on this one because this one really, because it has kind of connection to Barry Bonds. If they don't want to put Barry Bonds in, if they don't want to put Bonds in because he was on steroids and all these other guys, because it's so evil to do steroids, what about the guy who played in the late 90s and the 2000s and was freaking awesome, and he had power, and he was consistently 30-plus home runs every single year, almost of his career. Wonderful human being, by all accounts, a guy who was skinny his entire career. He never touched a steroid. You don't know what a steroid is. This dude was one of the best in the game, but he can't get in the Hall of Fame. What's going on here with Fred freaking McGriff? Because this dude, 493 home runs. You mean to tell me if he hit 7 more home runs, he'd be in first ballot? That's stupid if that's the case. 493 home runs, 2,490 hits, 10 times 30-plus home runs, 8 times 100-plus RBI, 5-time All-Star, World Series champion, just did it all over his career, except hit the magic 500. But he does have more home runs than these guys in the Hall of Fame, more home runs than Jeff Bagwell, Orlando Cepeda, Johnny Mize, Stan Musial, and he's tied with the great Lou Gehrig. More hits than Cepeda, Killebrew, McCovey, Mize, Bill Terry, Frank Thomas, Jim Thome, and I cannot understand why the crime dog cannot sniff the Hall of Fame. And just last thing I wanted to say from this is his power. Going from 1988, this is home runs per year, 34, 36, 35, 31, 35, 37, 34, 27, 28, 22, 19, 32, 27, 31. Dude, what's going on with the freaking crime dog? This dude needs a plaque right now. What do you think, Jim?
I love the enthusiasm. The very first YouTube video I ever put up was like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was the Fred McGriff Hall of Fame case, because I am drinking this Kool-Aid. I am making this Kool-Aid and selling it out in my trunk because Fred McGriff belongs in the Hall of Fame. What, you telling me he didn't get to 7 more home runs to 500, so we're going to hold him out? I think the argument is that he maybe hung on for too long. Did he, though? He retired at the age of 40. He wasn't still playing at 41, 42, 43. Like, he did not really hang on. Maybe he was hanging on that last year because he was in Tampa. He only played 27 games. He was irrelevant at that point, could barely hit. He knew, like you said, he knew that he needed to get to 500. That was going to be his ticket because he played during the steroid era when his 30 homers didn't look as good as 50 homers, which everybody else was hitting. And that is my art. That's my beef with it, because I've looked at it. He compares great to Hall of Fame sluggers. He belongs in there. And what's amazing to me, I look back at his 10 years on the ballot. His very first year, 2010, he breaks in with 21% of the vote. That's promising. You think, okay, that should rise over time. But then he dropped to 18%, but then went back up to 24, 20, 11, almost falls off the ballot in 2014. And then in his last year, he got 40% of the vote, 39.8 to be exact. He's a Hall of Famer. It is a crime that the crime dog is not in the Hall of Fame. We need the crime dog to come sniff this out, because he's a Hall of Famer. I don't understand why he's not a Hall of Famer. All day long, Fred McGriff, I'm banging that Hall of Fame drum. What do you think, Tyler?
It's ridiculous, honestly. Especially, you know what really bothers me is how you were alluding to how maybe he dragged out his career a little bit too long. What is the issue with the player wanting to prolong his career? Yeah. Yes, his numbers may go down after time. That's normal, especially when you get in your late 30s, early 40s if you're still in the league. But since when is that an issue? Why should you be slacked for actually still being an Iron Man in the league? I don't understand that. Yeah. You still have all your accolades from what you did in your prime. You're just still in the league. If anything, it's more impressive that you're able to drag out your career longer than, say, you retire right in your prime at the age of, early 30s, for instance. I think it's an absolute joke. I really do. Crime dog, he needs to be in, and no argument.
Yep. Yeah, if you're going to hold someone accountable for prolonging your career, they need to take Ricky Henderson out right now. Those guys that stuck around forever, way past they needed to. That's insane. Like Wardy said, how are you going to hold someone accountable because they were able to find a job? If somebody signed them to a contract and put them on a team, that means that they thought they were going to be helping them. So obviously, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But yeah, and also, like I said, they're holding guys out because of the integrity clause or the sportsmanship character clause. Yet they don't want to vote someone in who was absolutely one of the best sportsmen we've seen. Great integrity, great character. I don't think Fred McGriff has any mark against him in any way. I don't remember any controversy whatsoever. This dude is awesome. Yep. Can't get in. What is going on? So I'm glad that we're in agreement with that. I know that we're not always going to agree on every guy, of course, but some of these cases that I talked about today, Barry Bonds, at least I know why they're not voting for him. I don't know why they're not voting for McGriff. Are they really dumb enough that didn't get the magic 500? Didn't get there. Sorry, 7 more. We would have put you in. I don't know. So,
I just wanted to intervene quick because I think a factor could be, especially with these writers, like take myself, for instance. I wasn't around for when these guys are playing, let alone in their prime. All of these writers definitely weren't around for when all these guys played, or at least played in their peak. So they're constantly doing research and they're constantly just focusing on the numbers in particular. They didn't watch these guys play day by day to an extent like you guys have with Bonds, for instance, among some others. So I think that's one of the bigger issues when it comes to these writers. These aren't all guys that have been around the entirety of these players' careers or even experienced it firsthand. It's all secondhand, third-hand knowledge type situation. So I think that's a bigger issue with some of these writers because honestly, it's a joke, especially when you look at the table, and I've heard plenty of them before. Some of them I can't even just give the light of day, honestly, because it isn't worth my attention.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that they would really do their due diligence and compare him to his peers and understand that, I was also going to say, he didn't win any MVPs. Guess who was winning the MVPs? Bonds, Canseco,
during an era like that, I don't think that's anything to, get knocked off about. You know what I mean? Like, you're literally, okay, yes, you lose the award to the best hitter of all time. It's the equivalent, like, for hockey situation when anyone, say, comes in second each year and points to Wayne Gretzky. It's like, yeah, all right, yeah, you're coming in second. That shouldn't just, if Wayne Gretzky wasn't in the league, you would be that top dog. I don't understand it. I really don't.
His 28 home runs in 1996 should be looked at. That number should be elevated because of the fact that he wasn't taking steroids. Like that 28 actually should be a stronger number in his case because he just kept doing his thing. He could have easily started taking steroids and started jacking 50, but he didn't do it. He should be in there.
Yeah, that's it. It pisses me off because if you're not going to vote for the guys who did steroids because they did steroids,
right?
Then you're also not going to vote for the guys who didn't have padded stats, also because they didn't do steroids. I mean,
right.
If I'm Fred McGriff, I'm like, I might as well have done steroids. I might as well have hit 700 home runs.
I know, exactly. He should be rewarded for not following that temptation. Totally.
Yeah, absolute joke. So I think that pretty much covers it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And the video is not actually over yet because we're going to continue this. And you can go check out those other videos. Going to be over at BALLCAP Sports and WARDYNYM. Go check out the links in the description. I'll post a comment as well so that you can get to those channels. Check out their other content as well because great stuff, baseball and other sports as well. So you don't want to miss it. Is there anything else that y'all want to throw out there about these guys?
No, I think we hit the nail on the head. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you guys for joining us today. Sorry I got a little fired up. I get pissed off more about Fred McGriff than even Bonds because at least I understand why they don't vote for Bonds.
Right.
I know exactly why. Why aren't they voting for McGriff? It's bullshit. So talk to you guys later. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button. And we will see you next time. See ya.
When the Giants come to town, it's bye-bye.